Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, guys and dolls. This is Purple Zebra back with another little art video. Now, complete full disclosure, this fanfic idea world thing that I had created was back when I was like 10, 11 years old, somewhere around that time. Digimon was one of the first fandoms that I was ever in, next to Sonic and Sailor Moon. So you can probably tell just by me saying that how far back this goes and how young I was when I made this. So this is gonna be a really big cringe alert. There was a lot of shit that I wrote into this story that was just complete fan service for myself because I just really liked it. So yes, I was never big into writing fan fiction, and this isn't something that you'll go online and you'll find a story about it or anything, because I never posted anything I thought up or wrote in my own free time, because I didn't really like doing that when I was younger, and I'm kind of glad I didn't. It saved me from all of the cringe that I could induce upon myself. I know people, it's like I don't really like the whole idea of like everything you make as a kid is automatically cringe, but this whole story that I made was extremely self-indulgent. So I want to tell you guys about my Digimon fanfiction / alternate universe, or AU. See, when I was writing my Digimon fanfic, I watched, I think, the first 3 seasons, and maybe did I watch a little bit of 4th season? I forget. But I remember watching the first 3 seasons and wanting to write some Digimon stuff. I specifically wanted to make some Digimon trainers or tamers of my own, and I didn't want them to really link up with any of the main characters until later. This Digimon fanfic was in the time before, during, and after Season 1 and Season 2. Of Digimon. So if you guys remember Season 1 and Season 2, you'll know about the characters I'm going to start talking about. But essentially, what the fic was I was writing from the perspective of the first 5 Digimon trainers that first went into the digital world. There was a lot of speculation and a lot of hints throughout the first season of Digimon that the digital trainers that we were with were not the first humans to enter into the digital world. And so I wanted to make a group that was kind of like that. But I specifically based this group on 4 Digimon that I liked. And this is why in the group you'll see there are 4 guys and 1 girl. And I'll get to why that is in a second. Specifically, what I wanted to do was I wanted to make trainers, and I wanted them to have all of their own Digimon. But honestly, that part of the story where they fight the big bad and, you know, they do all the stuff, like maybe like a rehash of Season 1 just with my own characters kind of thing. They do all the stuff, they get all the prizes, and they save the digital world, whatever, and they go back to their own world. It's kind of on the back burner because I want to talk about what I had written after that, because that's really where my story goes, what the fuck? Because everything before that is really just a rehash of Season 1 or Season 2. You know, same character archetypes and stuff like that. And I want to mention all of my characters. Now, I can't remember all of their names. I honestly can't. The first character is M. I'm going to refer to him as M. You'll find out why. The second character is Brian, I believe. And then there's Sam, Ophelia, and Oeda. I believe those were my characters, but I can't remember for the life of me what I named M. It was probably something like Michael. I don't really remember, but I know his name had to start with M. And here's the thing. I wanted to base 4 of the characters on 4 different Digimon that I really, really liked, and I wanted them to be kind of... Okay, here's how I'll explain it. The 4 Digimon that I really liked were number 1, Omnimon, which was Oeda, Seraphimon, who was Sam, Ophanimon, who is Ophelia, and Black War Greymon, who is Brian. Now, where does the 5th M come in? M was going to be like my original character and my original Digimon. He was based off of a Digimon that I made that I named Megalomon. Megalomon. I believe is how I spelled it. And the reason I say that is because I was playing like the first Digimon World game on the PlayStation when I was thinking up this alternate universe fanfiction-y idea, and one of the attacks that I really liked on my Digimon was this attack known as Megalo Spark. And so I just took the word Megalo and I put it in like a Mon form, and I made Megalomon instead of Megalomon, Megalomon. That's what I called him. And essentially what happened was, after they saved the digital world and all of that, and I wanted them to all be approached after they saved the digital world by someone similar to Genai. You guys remember Genai from like the first, like maybe 2 seasons of Digimon? I remember he was in the first season, but I forget the second season. He was like this really weird character who we didn't know if it's like, is he just a human? Is he a Digimon? He was like somewhere in that middle ground. And he basically told them like, hey guys, we want you guys to come back and essentially be protectors and rulers of the digital world, as being like the first humans to come in there, whatever. They wanted them to come in and stay in the digital world forever and basically become like leaders, rulers of the world kind of thing. And what the thing is, like all of the characters that I wrote, my 5 characters, M, Brian, Sam, Ophelia, and Ueda, they all came from kind of like broken homes. They all came from broken families. I remember Ophelia, I believe she was the quote-unquote unwanted daughter, and her sister, her younger sister, was the wanted one. So all of her family kind of pushed their attention and love and caring onto that one daughter. So she thought if she left, it wouldn't be a big thing because the family wouldn't miss her, things like that. It's all very sad, but that's just what I was thinking when I was a child. Sam, I believe he was always getting into fights with his father. That's my Seraphimon character. He was always getting into fights with his father. And so at one point his father just said, if you choose to do this, whatever, I forget what it was, you know, you can leave this house and never come back kind of thing. And so he decided to do just that and go along with what the Genai character was saying. And then there's Ueda, who is an orphan, and so he was still in the foster care system when things were going on. You know, he was still not really didn't really have like a concrete family at the time, so he thought, you know, it's not a big deal, I can leave, whatever. Black War Greymon, I remember I made him have a mother, or Brian, sorry, not Black War Greymon yet, Brian. He had a mother who had severe, like, I think how I can describe it is like severe dementia, where she would have to be like, she was in like assisted care living home, and he would always kind of have to come and visit her, you know, as her child or whatever. Like every time he got off of school, he'd visit her, but every time he'd visit, it would be like a new thing. She would not remember him, she wouldn't know where he came from or who he was, and he would have to kind of start that all over and again. And he felt like he was being a burden onto her, so he felt that if he left, she would be happier. And then the last guy, my guy, M, or Megalomon, he came from a family where his father neglected him. Not really abused, but neglected in the sense that his father preferred his drugs and his alcohol over him. You know, he would buy alcohol and drugs as opposed to buying M more like clothes or books for school or food or things like that. So he would always come to school and he looked kind of beat up, he'd have tattered clothes, things like that. And that's what originally got the others interested in him when they became Digimon trainers, because they didn't know. He was like the last character to be included into the team. They didn't know that he was one of them because nobody ever spoke to him. And so he decided to leave too. And essentially they all left their world behind and went into the digital world. And they became kind of like this in-between where they're not humans, but they're not really Digimon. They're like the Genai character that I keep talking about from season 1, where it's like they have powers and there's something unique about them, but they're so human-like that they're almost not Digimon, but they're not human enough to be considered human. So are they Digimon? They're kind of like in that space between real and digital kind of thing, until they transform and they become their actual Digimon forms, which is Ophanimon, Seraphimon, Omnimon, Black War Greymon, and my version of Megalomon, what I was thinking of him. But as they look like regularly when they're just hanging out in the digital world and they don't have work to do, they kind of look like Gajinkas of their Digimon, because they're kind of like in that middle ground. And they all have separate jobs. I believe Ophanimon and Seraphimon were kind of a duo. They were in charge of looking over all of the newcomers to the digital world, basically all of the babies hatching from their eggs and things like that. Because there were so many of them, and when Digimon are that young, it's really easy for them to get corrupted. by darkness, so they were very, very cautious to like make sure all of them were safe. Omnimon was the leader. Like Ueda is kind of like the Tai or the Davis of the group. He was the leader of the group when they were just trainers, and when they moved to being like these sentient leadership beings in the digital world, he became like the leader of the digital world. Like everyone would go to him for advice, kind of thing. He was like the president, the king, things like that. He was the head honcho. And then Black War Greymon was the peacekeeper. He would basically, if anything started to get out of hand, like there was Digimon who were like trying to do an uprising, maybe like talking about like the Dark Lords from season 1 of Digimon, talking about the Dark Lords, like if they were to come into contact, he would be the first one to know about them, and he would be looking out for corrupted Digimon and stuff like that. And then Megalomon was known as the Timekeeper, where it's like he would make sure he had the time correct between the real world and the digital world. And if you remember, in season 1 of the show, I guess this kind of like spoilers if you don't know anything about Digimon, but in season 1 of the show, they find out when Tai gets transported back into the real world that the digital world was going a lot slower than in the real world. And that was because of Apocalypse or the Dark Lords. It was something like that that was keeping the digital world like it went a lot slower. So it's like a month will pass in the digital world and 5 minutes will pass in the real world, kind of thing. And I explained that by saying Megalomon had been turned to stone by the Dark Lords, and no one had none of the other leaders in the group, Black War Greymon, all of them hadn't really known about it until things started happening, until Black War Greymon came into like contact with the Dark Lords and he was captured, and all this stuff happened, like everybody was captured, kind of thing, like the leaders were captured, and slowly but surely all of them were saved by the digital trainers in the first season. There was Megalomon was actually the last one to be saved, kind of like mirroring the fact that he was the last one to join the team. He was the last one to be saved, so that when he was saved, the time between the two worlds reset back to the way it was before, so that they were in sync again. And none of the other leaders really know how to do each other's jobs. So what if Megalomon gets turned to stone, then nobody else knows how to keep the time. In season 2, I remember they came back for like I made it it was a little bit difficult because if you remember, in season 2 there was actually a Black War Greymon in the season that appeared out of nowhere, kind of thing. It was like Black War Greymon, but not really Black War Greymon, because he was a needle Digimon. If you've seen the show, you know what I mean. But I kind of did a thing where it's like, okay, he no longer exists. This is my Black War Greymon. Like when I was writing my AU, I was like, okay, this doesn't happen. Here's mine. I remember, I don't know if I actually made a legitimate timeline between events between my digital trainer season 1 and season 2, but the timeline had to be like the gap between the seasons and the gap between the first digital trainers to the second digital trainers, which was season 1 of the actual show, had to be very small. Because in season 2, I made a point, like one of the side missions, when everybody goes into the digital world, and not the digital world, the real world, and some of the digital world starts coming over into the real world. Like when the spider lady and the mummy guy started going into the real world, when all that started getting moved over in that season, I remember that specifically Megalomon and Black War Greymon, my characters, went into the real world with the other two. And what ended up happening is Megalomon actually found out that his father, when he disappeared, his father kind of realized that and had been looking for him ever since. And I believe he was the only one who I specified's parent actually went looking for him, and was kind of like wouldn't stop like annoying the police of the missing persons case, even though, after a while they said the trail had run cold, we had no idea where he is, things like that. he kind of gave up a lot of his vices, his alcoholism and his drug addiction, to like realize, you know, my son is gone, he's disappeared, I need to find him, you know, he's just a boy kind of thing. And in a way they kind of reconciled. It wasn't that like, oh, I forgive you for everything that's ever happened, because he was a very neglectful father kind of thing. But I think because he was an older man at this point, they kind of when they met up again and he realized that Megalomon was his son M, they did kind of reconcile a little bit, not really full forgiveness or full forgetfulness, but they had a connection that I also wanted to show to the villains of that season around that time. If you remember the villain of that time, I forget his name, but if you remember the villain of that time, kind of show him like the bond between like people and Digimon and stuff like that. And there was a lot of similarities between like the season 1 digital trainers group and my group of like half Digimon, half human people. Because it's like Omnimon was technically supposed to be like the Tyre Davis in a sense that he was the leader, but he was a very no-nonsense, not really a funny guy type thing like Ty and Davis usually tried to be. He was very no-nonsense. He was very kind of strict about things, but in a lighthearted way. Not so lighthearted that he was always making jokes about it, but not strict enough to where he's like, oh, he's a teacher kind of thing. You know, he was strict enough that they all listened to him because he gave off a lot of leadership qualities. Ophanimon kind of took the role of Sora from the original group, and it was kind of like Megalomon and Seraphimon were kind of like the Ty and the Matt of that, because, you know, there was a whole love triangle thing between Ty, Matt, and Sora, but Matt and Sora, I believe, were the ones who ended up together, as far as I know, as far as the Digimon movie tells me. But Matt and Sora were the ones who ended up together, kind of. So it was kind of like that, where it's like Seraphimon and Megalomon both kind of liked Ophanimon. But the thing is, Seraphimon and Ophanimon are kind of like Angelomon and Angemon kind of thing. They're kind of like, because of how close they are in similarities, they're kind of meant to be together. And Megalomon was kind of left to his own devices. So they were kind of like that, but the thing is, Megalomon was more the Ty who acted more like a Matt, in a sense that he didn't get the girl, but he was more of a Matt type character, kept mostly to himself because of his background. And then Seraphimon was more of the Matt type character, where he was the second in charge, he was the second in command after Megalomon kind of thing, which technically makes him the third because Omnimon was the first, but you know what I mean. And but he was more like a Ty in his personality and things like that. And Black War Greymon was actually the one who was the most nervous, I guess you would say. He was the youngest of the group, but he wasn't actually that much younger than the others. It was like maybe like a 1 or 2 year difference, I remember. And he was kind of nervous about everything because he didn't understand whatever was going on. And when he became the Peacekeeper, he gained a lot more confidence and he gained a lot more strength. And I think I remember that I actually made Ophanimon and Seraphimon get together after they became like the leaders in the digital world. And I believe it was during season 2, during the arc that should have been Black War Greymon's arc, where he came out of the needles and whatever, and was looking for all the stones and whatever. I actually think it was, I made it so Black War Greymon and Megalomon got together. I think that was like my first introduction to maybe like a gay romance, because Black War Greymon and Megalomon were both guys. And I think that was my first introduction to a gay romance kind of thing that I wrote specifically. I can't really remember one before that, but there might have been, I don't know. I think that's just far back as I can remember when I was writing characters. Because if you guys don't know, like my quintessential Stardust gay pairing of Syosuke and Sky, they were not together to begin with. They only were together when I was like maybe, I wrote them together when I was like maybe 15 or 16, so that was like pretty recent, considering that story is like so old that I started writing it when I was like 9. Like 7 or 9, somewhere around there. Like I started writing this story a long ass time ago. But with my Digimon one, I think that was my first introduction to like trying to write like them two together. You see how crazy this fanfiction alternate universe idea was. Like it holds none of the like rules that the actual Digimon anime set in place for the fucking show. But I was just like, I want to go crazy. I want to make stupid shit. that was just me when I was younger. It sounds really stupid now that I'm talking about it, but I was just like, I was a stupid kid and I just wanted to do fun things. And I think it was season 2, because here's how I set it out. Omnimon was kind of like the character someone could never get to. So when season 1 and season 2 rolled around, it was kind of like he was always the figurehead in the background that everyone would know he was looking over them, but they would never actually see him until shit went down with like Apocalypse at the end of season 1, and he had to step in and help, kind of thing. Ophanimon and Seraphimon were a little bit more well known because they had to be there every time the eggs hatched and stuff like that. So they were more like peaceful with everyone, and everyone kind of respected and knew them. Black War Greymon was the peacekeeper, so a lot of people were afraid of him because he was the darkest out of all of the characters, and he kind of like in his confidence and his reassurance of himself, he didn't want to like make it so like if he was going to be the peacekeeper, he wanted to fight the enemies on his own because he didn't want to get any of his other friends hurt, as opposed to Megalomon, who kind of, when he was finally freed from his imprisonment and he was able to set everything right in season 1, in season 2 he became more of like the partner, where it's like if you go into the digital world and you when the characters go into the digital world, it's like 7 times out of 10 they'd run into him and he'd be like helping them through their adventures and everything like that. And that actually culminated in a moment I remember I wrote him getting corrupted, because if you remember in season 2 there was the whole Ken thing that went on when he was like corrupted with evil, and he was like corrupting other Digimon with his like dark braces things. I forget what they're called. If you can't tell, I haven't seen the show in forever, but he was corrupting like other Digimon with their dark braces. Like one of the big ones was he corrupted Greymon. I think at one point it turned him to a Skull Greymon. I think that was a thing that happened. But he did that. He when he made the spirals so that he could corrupt stronger Digimon, he actually attached, I believe, 3 of them to Megalomon and turned him evil for like a quick spell. They actually had to get the other characters, Ophanimon, Seraphimon, Black War Greymon, and Omnimon to help them because they could not fight Megalomon. Because there was like Rookie Champion Ultimate Mega, and I believe all of them, Omnimon, I believe Black War Greymon was an Ultimate? No, Metal Greymon was an Ultimate. War Greymon was a Mega. So Black War Greymon was Mega. I believe they were all Mega. If not, I'm just gonna make them that they're all Mega because I want them to all be on the same playing field. And they were all Mega Digimon. So I think there was like probably one after that, which was like Ultra Mega or something like that, which never made any sense to me, but whatever. And I can never figure out the fusions. The fusion Digimon. They were supposed to be stronger than like the normal like champions or whatever. I think. But I didn't know where they fit into everything. Like there was at one point when the whole like Dark Spires went up in season 2. Now I'm just complaining about the show. But when the whole thing that happened with the Dark Spires went up in season 2 and they couldn't digivolve, they had to do the thing with the digivolve with the eggs and things like that, and it would be like I forget the names of the Digimon, but you know, the eggs. I can't remember. And they would digivolve with those, but then when the Dark Spires got taken down and they were able, some of them were just able to digivolve into their regular like champion forms. They were stronger than the Digivolutions with the eggs. So I'm like, where does that leave the egg Digivolutions? Are they like some kind of champion, but just like a weaker form of champ? Like what? I was so confused for the longest time. Like, I didn't know that regular champion digivolving was like strong, and then the ultimate, and then the stuff. You know, whatever. And that's all I really remember from my like fanfiction alternate universe thing with Digimon. I don't believe I put them anywhere else. I believe the thing is, I really like season 1 and 2 of Digimon. Season 3 was okay. I think people play that up a lot and like, oh, the season got dark and stuff like that. Whatever, whatever. I'm like, season 1 and season 2 of Digimon also got kind of dark at points. It's just season 3 was like more overtly dark because it was like, oh, this orphan kid, was she an orphan? I don't know. This orphan kid, we can take her and use her sadness to like fuel darkness or whatever. And that's like super dark and edgy and stuff like that. I'm like, chill. Chill. It's not that deep. It really isn't. I remember as a kid really liking season 2, but I think after I went back and rewatched them, I really liked season 1 more. So I don't know. I don't remember watching season 3 all the way through. I remember watching a lot of the beginning and a lot of the ending, and then there are some episodes like smack dab in the middle of that season that I just do not recall at all. Like for some reason I can't recall them at all. Like just smack dab in the middle of the season. Like I don't know what happened to those episodes, if I just skipped over them when I was watching them or whatever. Didn't care for season 4, and I didn't ever watch season 5 because I wasn't into it anymore. I was kind of bored with formula, and I wasn't into any of the characters. It seemed pretty predictable. A lot of shit that was going to go down seemed pretty predictable. So I was just like, I can skip it. And then later on, they made it more of like a mecha anime. I don't know, it became more mecha as the seasons went on. And I was like, you know what? You do you. I'm good. I did try watching Digimon Try, where they went back to like the Adventure 1 and 2 characters. It was really Like, it wasn't good, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't like terrible, but it wasn't great. And I did not like the art style that they used for it. Because, say what you want about the original art style, at the very least, in the original Season 1 and Season 2 art styles of Digimon, the characters looked very distinct and unique. In the new art style, yes, everything looked cleaner, but everybody looked the same. Everybody looked the same, and it was boring. Like, it was kind of one of those things where the only thing that was separating the characters was the hair again, which was not something that was in the original Season 1 and Season 2 Digimon. And I was a little put off by that. And the story was just kind of like all over the place. But you didn't come here to hear me talk about that. You came here to hear me talk about my stupid fanfiction. Yeah, that's my stupid fanfiction. If you guys have any of your own stupid fanfictions, leave them in the comments below. If you have fanfictions that you want me to read, leave them in the comments below. If you think you've seen the best Digimon fanfiction in the world and you think it's like the greatest thing to ever exist, leave it in the fucking comments below. Share the art. I want to see it. But thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like and a comment in the comment section below. If you want to see more, check me out on Twitter, Instagram, DeviantArt, and support me on Ko-fi or my not safe for work Patreon if you guys are willing. But thank you all so much for watching. This is Purple Zebra, signing off, calling for a blackout.